Does magic exist in the world of One Piece? I think that most people would say absolutely not. But is that actually the truth or not?
Hey YouTube, Joeboy here. So,
Everybody already knows this to be true. There's over 1,000 chapters of One Piece and we are in the endgame. The powers have been defined. The magic of the world of One Piece is devil fruits and haki. But are they really though? Early One Piece suggests something much broader in scope. Do you guys remember Django and hypnosis? Do you remember Miss Golden Week and her paint? Or Kumadori and his weird ability to manipulate his own hair? These powers are largely forgotten, but they do exist. Arc after arc, we are introduced to haki and its various permutations. Oda is bashing us over the head with it. We've seen it enough that I think it starts to narrow your thinking. Armament and observation and conquerors. This is what defines haki. For battle, this is all there really is to look forward to, but it's just a lot more nuanced than you think. One of the OG theories of this channel is that essentially the soul powers everything in One Piece. Souls are all magic. Music has a sort of magical effect in the story, and likewise people describe music as a force which moves the soul. Cooking is not different. Sanji has unique recipes which grant particular powers to those he feeds. Sanji makes soul food. In Zoro's pursuit of sword mastery, he somehow unlocks auras which bend reality. Zoro follows Bushido, and I believe that this path of sword mastery leads to spiritual enlightenment. Zoro's auras are aspects of his own soul that he has mastered. So maybe you'll say that there's no such thing as magic in the story because powers can be defined. Maybe souls are the secret to everything, even devil fruits. But what is definitely clear is that there is more than one way to tap into this latent power. So I want to speculate that the oldest known character in the story of One Piece, Emu, has had at least 800 years to discover secrets lost to time. In chapter 1094, Saturn awakens his devil fruit, and we see this weird pentacle. It's a visual unlike anything that we've associated before with either haki or devil fruits. But this does not mean it is something new. In fact, a similar pentacle is present if you follow Brook's story after he separates from the crew. In that, villagers from a random island attempt black magic, conduct a demonic ritual to summon the king of all demons, Satan himself. Obviously this is a joke because Brook is not Satan, but I wonder if they were attempting something that was actually possible. And it makes me wonder whether Saturn is a demon summoned from hell itself. Sounds wild, right? I promise you guys it is less wild than it appears, but strap yourselves in, give this theory a chance, remember to like, subscribe, click the bell to be notified, and let's begin. I think that the underworld or hell or the afterlife actually exists in the world of One Piece. And I think that we know this for sure because for a moment Brook died and actually visited it. Brook often comments on the chill of the underworld as if it's a place that he actually visited and experienced. In fact, the story has not really shied away from some religious associations. The idea of an afterlife. What happens to the soul? The Shandians believe that the beautiful sound of the golden bell called the souls of their ancestors to the earth, where they would reside in sacred trees. A similar superstition existed within Wano. The idea that during the fire festival, they could send lanterns up to heaven to communicate with their ancestors. I believe that these superstitions are rooted in One Piece world reality. Like Gold Roger famously said, "I'm not gonna die, partner." Of course he meant his legacy, that he would spark the great age of piracy, and that he would not soon be forgotten. But partly I wonder if his soul lived on. It also reminds me of Dr. Hugh. A man dies when he is forgotten, as if this could possibly convey that the souls of our ancestors live within us. That this might be the true nature of the inherited will, through those that you influence or love, or maybe those who loved you, you live on. An unbroken chain of life and that life's desires, or will. So maybe the Shandians had it slightly wrong. The sound of the golden bell maybe didn't call the ancestors into sacred trees, but rather into themselves. Joy inspires dreams, and beauty inspires joy. This joy opens some kind of window, lets those who have already passed receive a glimpse of the future. This interpretation is straight up one for one with the Fire Festival. An insane party allows you to communicate with the dead. But don't worry, I'm not going to trash the Shandians' beliefs either. because I think that their ritual might be related to something else. So hold that thought. I also think that there might be a foil to the fire festival. Fears and pains are inherited in the same way as joy and dreams. I feel as if this was conveyed in Fishman Island. Hody Jones had never been personally harmed by humans. Instead, he carried hatred, inherited from his ancestors. Dreams are something that One Piece fans understand is important to the story. But I wonder about nightmares too. In fact, I think using the term dreams is kind of misleading. Probably a safer word choice is desires. Desire is the force which inspires adventure, and everyone adventures for something, some more ambitiously than others. And it's easier to understand how desires can be both good and bad. As Van Augur says at the conclusion of Jaya, all things in this world are cogs that move in tune to strong desires. I believe that this should be applied to the inherited will as well. The dead can pass along their nightmares. Either way, I definitely live in a headcanon where souls are real, and souls contain the essence of you. There are ways that deceased souls can interact with the living, but I also wonder whether or not souls can be reborn. Shirahoshi inherited the powers of Poseidon, which are said to be reborn within the fishman population every 100 or so years. The Sea Kings await the rebirth of their sovereign. It sounds a lot like reincarnation. Certainly reincarnation being real in the story of One Piece wouldn't be too much of a surprise because Oda is from Japan and reincarnation is a prevalent belief there. We've argued in many videos in the past that the story of One Piece is a parable of Buddhism. The story subtly conveys Buddhist teachings, and it should be no surprise that Buddhists believe in an afterlife. Anime fans should be familiar with a visual conception of this through Dragon Ball, mainly because Goku dies like 5 times. King Yima, or Enma, judges the souls of the dead, and this judgment is based off of accumulated karma, or essentially how you lived your life. But based on this determination, Enma decides where you go after you die, or if you are allowed to be reborn. But in Dragon Ball though, it's pretty simple, and I think familiar to Western audiences. Enma mostly sends souls to either heaven or hell. But as far as I'm aware, this is not the more traditional belief. But I just want to plant this idea in your head of an afterlife and give you a rough visual of what this might look like. I believe that souls exist. Some circumstances at least allow for rebirth. The dead do in some ways influence the One Piece world, and hell is real. So now let's do something with it. I've already explained how I believe in Wano's mythology, the idea of the fire festival. I think that great joy in parties open a window to allow the deceased to view the present, so that the living may communicate with them. But I also think that the Shandians' rituals shed some light on a different event. The sound of the bell calls the souls of their ancestors into sacred trees. I think that this is similar to the process which creates devil fruits. We speculated a lot about artificial devil fruits in the story. In Punk Hazard, Oda reveals the chemical SAD, or SAD. And in Dressrosa we learn that Doflamingo takes this chemical, pumps it into the water of his Smile factory, and there it is absorbed by trees, eventually producing artificial fruit. But the secret really comes down to SAD, which I believe is primarily composed of lineage factor or soul, taken exclusively from slain animals, which is why Smile only grants zone capabilities. SAD, like Brook's soul, are colored green. But here we have a concept that you should be familiar with: trees absorbing souls. Guys, if heaven exists in the world of One Piece, if you died, that is where you'd want your soul to go. Or maybe the concept in One Piece is more similar to traditional Buddhist beliefs. Likewise, if you died in the world of One Piece, you would want your soul to be reborn, so that you may live another lifetime and accumulate more karma, in order to eventually be able to reach nirvana. Either way, you would not want your soul to be trapped within a tree on Earth. This would not be a desirable outcome. So if this superstition is legitimate, I see it as a kind of punishment. We can speculate all day, but Oda did not mince words when he named these fruits in the story. They're called devil fruits. I wonder if they are created from the souls that reside within hell exclusively, so that the souls which reside in devil fruits today are all essentially the souls of demons, regardless of the power that they grant. But don't knee-jerk too hard about Luffy's devil fruit. We might throw in an aside at some point. At the very least, know that I see Luffy's devil fruit slightly differently. So I understand that this is speculative, but I really don't think that the sound of the Golden Bell actually called the souls of the Shandians' ancestors into trees. For me, the Golden Bell works the same as the Fire Festival. It's a beautiful sound. Anyone and everything that hears it remarks that it creates a sense of joy. I think that when the bell chimes, it allows the souls of the Shanian's ancestors a window to view the present. When it rings, they're watching. Yet I do think that the Shanians were unintentionally creating devil fruit trees. For me, it is no coincidence that these sacred trees became infected, and the disease called tree rush would have eradicated their entire population if it weren't for Mont Blanc Noland. While joy in some form may call the souls of the ancestors to the world of the living, I think fear and death do as well. This opens a window to hell, where the souls that are banished there may be able to escape. This might change how you perceive Wano, just in the sense that you have the flower capital and the fire festival and a celebration of joy. It is heaven on earth. And on the other hand, you have Onigashima, death and destruction. Onigashima is hell, each place simultaneously opening a different window to be able to interact with the afterlife. I think the same concept applies to music. The Shandian's bell creates a beautiful sound, but there is also a foil. Oda introduced Hot Musica in Film Red, the demon king of songs, the very same as we are speculating about devil fruits. Playing this song summons a powerful demon from another realm. Frankly, this makes a lot more sense to me than the reverse. If you are a good soul that has lived a good life, you would want to go to heaven. Why would you intentionally attach yourself to the world of the living? If we assume that the magic of devil fruits is related to souls, it's conveyed to us that the souls within devil fruits are trapped in an endless cycle. A person eats the fruit grants them powers. It is said that they now have a devil within them. The devil fruit user dies, and the soul reincarnates in a nearby fruit, beginning the process again. While not true of a soul destined for heaven, for a soul that is banished to hell, this would be an improvement. Look guys, we know that devil fruits have a will of their own. We've also seen through Chopper somebody not yet ready for awakening experience one. Chopper used a rumble ball, and I believe that the soul of a devil took over. Chopper became a demon. Another theory that we've had for many years is that the devil fruit exerts some influence over the user. The devil fruit might potentially change you to better resemble its own nature, maybe only in subtle ways, but still. Certainly, it is true that many of the devil fruits in the story perfectly match their users. Doflamingo and the string fruit. He became a puppeteer. Aokiji and ice, Akainu and magma, Ace and fire, Ivankov and hormones. Some are clear, some are not, but there is enough for you to ask the question. What came first, the chicken or the egg? I think that it's easy to say that it's a design choice. Oda matched fruits to users. But if Oda could do more with it, why wouldn't he? Are people destined to eat fruits which reflect themselves? Or does the fruit make this true? Even now, we see that Luffy has awakened his devil fruit, and he is not quite the same person. He says this himself, he can't stop laughing. The devil fruit is exerting some kind of will on him, different to his own. I imagine that this effect is exacerbated once you have awakened your devil fruit. But mainly what I want to convey to you is the spirit of the devil fruit. It is its own complete entity, and I don't believe it to be far-fetched for this to be a powerful soul from hell. But at the very least, having explained this, I think that you can understand why a devil might want to leave hell and become a fruit. Those in hell had desires in life as well. Their souls contained their wills. Then the devil fruit user might be a vehicle for those from hell to fulfill their long-forgotten desires, even if those desires are something simple, such as death and destruction, which is certainly circumstances which accompany devil fruit users often in the story. Sabo straight up tells us that hell is located at the top of the world. Seeing Saturn in the most recent chapters, we have some context for this comment. But even more than that, I think that Imu is the devil. Literally the devil. And every member of the Gorosei is a demon. I made a video related to this topic titled The Other Imu. I'll go ahead and link it in the description. I convey my thoughts here in a lot of words, and we get kind of tinfoily in the video, and I don't want that to distract you. But I would describe my thoughts about Imu as being complex. I think that a lot of people attribute various kinds of power to Imu, and I try to incorporate them all in some form, based on my own headcanon. But ignoring all the waffle, I think that Imu is the devil of the sea in some form. I love this theory for many reasons, but among them is the foil that we've highlighted throughout this video. Desires can be both good and bad. The foil to dreams is nightmares. Some souls possess desires so corrupt that they get banished to hell. Nika is the sun god or the god of light. I believe Luffy's fruit allows him to realize people's dreams or imaginations, including his own. He fulfills them, essentially making anything possible. Luffy is a god of joy. Joy reflects fulfillment and contentment. Joy, which we've speculated in this video, allows for the world of the living to connect to heaven. Opposing this is Imu, the god of fear and death, which we speculated in this video allows the world of the living to connect to hell. Imu, as the mythical devil, might be able to realize people's nightmares and fears. If Imu is literally the devil or possesses a mythical zone devil fruit, there will be magical attributes to his powers. So this takes us back to Saturn and the Pentacle. Guys, I really do not think that it would be a stretch if Saturn was an entity summoned by Imu. In the latest chapter of One Piece, chapter 1095, we get a flashback to God Valley. There we see Saturn, and it is very conspicuous that Saturn looks exactly the same there as he does 40 years later. This confirms, in my opinion, that Saturn is immortal. I'm sure that many people will speculate that this is a result of Law's devil fruit. The Opi Opi no Mi has a stated ability to be able to grant perpetual youth. Yet still, this pentacle stands out to me. This is visually unlike any other devil fruit ability. We don't see this anywhere else except for a ritual to summon demons. So its presence is an indicator to me that something unique is happening with Saturn. And I think that it might explain his immortality. Do you guys really think it would be crazy if Imu possesses the ability to summon demons from hell? Well, let me be the one to tell you guys, for sure, I don't think that it's crazy. And frankly, this still works even if it isn't a part of Imu's natural abilities. It might be legitimately possible to summon demons from hell without a devil fruit, or without literally being the devil, because we've seen people attempt it already. Certainly they must have done something wrong, but Imu is very clearly from the Void Century. They've lived for over 800 years, most likely, and during this time they could have come to possess lost, forgotten, or taboo knowledge. So in my mind, any way that you want it to work, it could work. That Saturn is not what he appears to be. And so you can combine this with some of the feats that Saturn has demonstrated in the recent chapters, such as his ability to heal. I don't think that Saturn is truly alive. And I understand that celestial dragons see themselves as gods and not as humans, but I really don't think that Saturn is human. So basically, I wonder whether physical attacks have limited effect on him. I see him as something more akin to a spirit. So it's time for us to make a choice, right? This is a creative choice, it could be something different. But I have to honestly express what I think. My personal belief is that Imu is the devil. However, his powers aren't related to summoning the Gorosei. This is knowledge. It's science. And I believe it to be science which is related to the creation of devil fruit trees and devil fruits. A natural question that you should be asking yourself right now is, if the random people in the island that Brook visited knew that black magic and demonic rituals was something that could be accomplished, clearly they were missing something. What were they doing wrong? And I think the key ingredient to make this work, aside from the pentacle, is death. So let's back this up and make sure that we explain fully. It is my opinion that in order to create a devil fruit, you need a massacre. This can happen intentionally or unintentionally. In the case of the Shanians, this was unintentional. The process of creation began because of disease. But regardless, widespread death blends hell with the world of the living, so that the spirits of hell may be able to infiltrate the world of the living through trees. Once a certain number, most probably a lot of these souls accumulate within one certain tree, it then becomes capable of producing fruit. My guess is the very strongest souls within it become fruit first. If you want a visual representation of this, look at Blackbeard as he recruited members from Impel Down. Those that survive get to join my crew. You gotta admit, it's kinda fitting for the person who seems to know a lot about devil fruits to essentially recreate the process in forming his crew. And wait a moment, this took place in Impel Down, or hell. And all of these people were the most notorious criminals. I'm just saying. But I have more to say about devil fruit trees, we'll come back to this. But I think that death is the missing ingredient in this demonic ritual. Not just a little death, a lot of death. But in a similar way to the devil fruit tree, this blends worlds. And with the right knowledge, Imu can summon very specific demonic spirits of their choosing that they have full control over. I also made this comparison with devil fruit trees very particular, because I want you to think that Saturn is a living devil, unbound from the cycle of the fruit. This is going to be so wildly tinfoil, guys, and I want to prepare you for that. I will be speaking as if it is truth, but it is a theory, and it is more creative than substantial, but it is also mind-blowing. Initially, I wasn't going to include this, but I think that this theory connects everything. So you gotta do what you gotta do. Let's talk about the Sunlight Eve tree. It's pretty freaking massive, going all the way from above sea level in Sabaody down to Fishman Island. We've already speculated that trees absorb souls, so why not this one? I believe that this is already a popular theory, but it has occurred to me as well, whether or not Sunlight Eve tree has something to do with devil fruits. Because it is my belief that the Nika mythical zone devil fruit was the first devil fruit, and that this devil fruit is based off of a godlike figure that at one point actually existed. This god cursed itself and became a tree in order to trap its evil siblings. Do I even want to explain this theory? I feel like I've opened a can of worms here. The video reference is the 3 god fruits of One Piece explained. I'll go ahead and link it in the description. In the one-shot version of One Piece before it became official, devil fruits were not a thing. Oda had not conceived that idea yet. There was only one kind of magical tree and magical fruit, and that was the Gomu Gomu tree. I believe that Oda evolved this idea into Nika, but retained some core concepts. There is still only one magical fruit-bearing tree in the story of One Piece, and this is still technically the Gum Gum tree. And its original fruit is still the Gomu Gomu no Mi. It just also happens to be the reason why all the other devil fruits are created. But when Nika the god first transformed himself into a tree, it was for a purpose, and that was to lock away the other powerful gods that existed at that time. Self-sacrifice for the salvation of the world. We've also talked about this somewhat in recent videos. It's like Jesus. If you hadn't noticed, Joy Boy is very similar to Jesus, a person of prophecy destined to return to save the world. This theory has gotten stronger because we are currently in Kuma's flashback, where he learns about Nika, and I think it is not a surprise that throughout the story, Kuma holds a Bible. But anyway, there were 3 original devil fruits, all created because of Nika's sacrifice. These 3 god fruits belong to Luffy, Blackbeard, and Emu. And this theory makes the assumption that Blackbeard's Yami Yami no Mi, like Luffy's Gomu Gomu no Mi, is secretly a mythical zone. That's my opinion. But yeah, let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. The purpose of all this is to explain how Sunlight Eve tree has something to do with devil fruits. So returning to Doflamingo's Smile Factory, where they produce artificial devil fruits, the light that he uses in order to grow the trees there are elegant sunflowers or sunlight sunflowers. It reminds me of Nika and the Sunlight Eve tree. These artificial devil fruits that Caesar created were also called Smile, because that is what they did to people who ate them. And I think that this substantiates the idea that Joy Boy and that Nika is in some way related to the creation of devil fruits. So to transform this into a fancy story, right? Nika ended a cyclical, never-ending war by trapping its siblings. And each of these siblings watched over and represented an aspect of heaven and earth. Nika is the sun, one of its siblings is the moon, and the last is the sea and the underworld. These gods became trapped on earth, and simultaneously became a vehicle to connect the realms. So it is through Sunlight Eve tree, or Nika's sacrifice, that the people of the One Piece world can communicate with the spirits of the dead. Nika was the primordial god of heaven. When you express Nika's joy, heaven and earth combine. But obviously there were unintended consequences. The sea god of hell is here too, and through him death connects hell to earth. In my opinion, this is why the sea is the enemy of devil fruit users. The sea is the gateway to hell, like in the mythology of Davy Jones' Locker, and it senses that devil fruit users possess souls which belong to it. It attempts to retrieve them. But of course I mentioned 3 gods, Nika and the devil of the sea being just 2 of these. Nika is heaven, the devil is hell, and the 3rd god is rebirth. Essentially, it is a state of existence for souls that have not been fulfilled by life. Even as potentially good souls, they aren't yet ready to move on. And for me, these souls are the specific ones which influence the inherited will, or the will of D. And unlike heaven and hell, they may always be watching. Because the power which blends the realms in this case is neither joy nor fear. It is intense desire that has not been locked away in hell. To me, this is a reflection of the moon. The moon in Japanese lore forever chases the sun. It has a sort of longing. And I do not think that it is a coincidence. Introduced early on in One Piece, the moon has some effect on people. The minks are one example, but Kuro is another. I think it's fair to speculate that it stokes desires. But this is what night represents in the story. It is the trial, the dangerous adventure in pursuit of what you want. Different to the dawn, which is a fulfillment of that desire. You must weather the night in order to reach the day. You must fulfill your desires. to reach the sun or heaven. However, like the moon, most dreams or desires never escape the night. It's usually at this point that I would quote Vivi's speech at the end of Alabasta or Bink's Sake. I'll just leave you guys to read those on your own. Just know that they substantiate some of the ideas here. But the main concept that I want you to understand is that this third god is related to desires more than anything else. I think it's easy to conflate this with Nika, but Luffy fulfills people's dreams. He satisfies desires. He does not create them. In my opinion, this is why Blackbeard's Yami Yami no Mi possesses the ability to absorb devil fruits, because the powers granted by these devils are desire incarnate. So now it's time to complete the theory. I believe that devil fruits are only possible because of all three gods' powers combined. Sunlight Eve Tree's light allows souls to escape from hell. But as Vegapunk explains in the recent chapters, the devil fruit's powers relate to desire. In my opinion, this third aspect is missing with artificial fruit, which is why Caesar and Vegapunk have both failed to recreate Paramecia and Logias. They have the souls of the dead in the light of Nika, but they are missing the god of the moon. They are missing the god which represents all unfulfilled desires not banished to hell. The Tamate Bako was described as a treasure, but it didn't really feel that way. I think that this was its secret. When the minks ate these pills, they transformed into Sulong. Sulong, which normally occurs during the full moon. Therefore, it's fair to speculate that these pills possess the power of the full moon, the missing ingredient to create actual devil fruits. But let's take a deep breath. We speculated that fear and death blend hell and earth, allowing for the escape of souls from hell into trees. While this may be possible within individual trees, I think the potential there is limited. And this is the point of having insanely massive trees in the world of One Piece. These trees are so large and their roots so widespread that they reach all corners of the world. Therefore, death that occurs on any island, even Shandia as an example, may be able to interact with them. In my opinion, this may be the point of the Celestial Dragon's Cleansing Festival. Yes, the Celestial Dragons are greedy, cruel, and corrupt. They are capable of doing this without a greater purpose, but Imu has a design for this, and that's that these festivals produce enough death to create a new devil fruit. This is highly speculative, but I also wonder whether this could be the process which would help Imu re-summon the Gorsei. If they are summoned using black magic, I would imagine that there are some limitations, such as that they can only exist for a certain amount of time, or expend only a certain amount of energy before they disappear and return to hell, or maybe even return to the fruit that they originally were. Either way, if this theory is true or not, I think that we will know very shortly. I think that if the Cleansing Festival is also a demonic ritual, God Valley would have to become a surreal place. But this was interesting enough, I felt like, to bring up. And if this is not the case, it could just be creating a devil fruit elsewhere. But assuming all of this is true, it then creates an interesting scenario. Egghead is getting intense and it's becoming unclear as to how the Strats would even be able to escape. This is known as the Egghead Incident. The world is forever changed, and it doesn't appear to be setting up the world government achieving some sort of victory. I believe that they have to be the biggest losers, and I have thought since Saturn was introduced that Saturn would lose. But suddenly Saturn is here, and he appears too strong. Guys, there's a reason that Blackbeard is here. It's been my headcanon for a while now that this arc is going to serve Blackbeard more than everybody else. More than the Straw Hats even. Like Impel Down, Blackbeard will use Luffy's chaos in order to obtain something incredibly valuable. And like Sabaody, it will establish Luffy's new rival as a Yonko. Simply stated, it is my opinion that it is time for Oda to go all in on Blackbeard hype post-time skip. And it just so happens to be incredibly convenient based on this theory that I think that Blackbeard can unexist Saturn. Like the Knight, Blackbeard's Yami Yami no Mi possesses the ability to steal desires and leave them unfulfilled. More tangibly, Blackbeard's abilities allow him to negate devil fruits. In the case of a living human, they lose their powers. However, hypothetically, what would occur when Blackbeard interacted with an undead being from hell, or a devil incarnate unbound from the fruit? Maybe I shouldn't attempt to get too specific here, but I just wanted to point this out. I think that we'll find out the truth of this sooner or later, and I could totally be wrong, but the thought is exciting. Will Blackbeard continue to foil and at the same time parallel Luffy? And will Oda establish him, just like all of the other Ds, as a natural enemy to gods? Anyway guys, just like all of my theories, this ended up being a bigger project than initially anticipated because I wanted to connect everything. Knowledge and ideas don't satisfy me nearly as much without context. So I wanted to provide that theoretical context. But obviously trying to predict a huge endgame One Piece reveal to this specific detail is a fool's errand. But hey, I decided to call myself Joy Boy Theories, right? Joy Boy, the god of joy, might also be a fool. Maybe I am too. So right or wrong, I just hope that you guys enjoyed it and it gave you something to think about. At the very least here, I have somehow created an incredibly interesting and complex rationale and world building for superpowers and magic. And if Oda doesn't want to use it, then maybe I will. Which reminds me to remind you to check out my books, The Booms. If you like the magic of this theory, you might like my books. And like One Piece, I don't begin it and attempt in any way to explain it. So I don't know if that's a pro or a con. I think it's a pro. Either way, those that read will eventually be able to understand how everything works. Eventually. So if you manage to make it to any of these reveals or finish these volumes, make sure you leave a review and just let other people know that, hey, it was worthwhile. Or not. But yeah, I won't keep you guys any longer. Like the video, subscribe, click the bell to be notified, join the squad, and as always guys, have a wonderful day.